Okay, so welcome back to my channel. Okay, this is going to be a quick recap of Absentia, Season 1, Episode 3, The Emily Show. Okay, so Emily's in Dr. Vega's office, and she's still trying to help her recover her memory. It's still coming back in fragments. And he's trying to help her piece together her memory so she can find out what actually happened to her. And she made the statement of, I wanted to remember, but I'm afraid to remember what I've done. So why she worded it like that is, we don't know yet. It's unclear right now. But he basically told her, just be patient and, give it time. So Tommy is still processing the scene at Hollow Conrad's place. This was actually his apartment. So he's there. They're still gathering evidence. His boss walks up, and he basically gives her the rundown that, he had ordered an escort. The escort got there around a certain amount of time. For some reason, the security cameras wasn't working all of a sudden. When the escort got there, he was already dead. No knife was found. And, that was basically the gist of what he knew at that point. So CSI was still processing the forensic evidence. So he didn't really have much else to go on. So his boss walks off and he sees Nick. Nick shows up. And Tommy was like, okay, you're out of your jurisdiction. This crime scene is out of your jurisdiction. And Nick was basically, was like, she didn't do this. And have you done your research on Kelly Price, aka Regina Talbot? And he said, yeah, well, surprise, surprise, she skipped town. And he was like, it's just a matter of time before Emily is blamed for this. This is what Tommy said to Nick. And Nick basically let him know, that we think that there's a crooked FBI agent involved that helped Regina Talbot become Kelly Price, and that they have something to do with this. And he asked Tommy to give him a little bit of time. And so Tommy, as I guess professional courtesy, was like, you know what, just make sure she doesn't leave town. So Nick makes his way over to Jack's place where Emily is staying. And I'm thinking, based on the conversation, this is where he told her that Conrad was dead. And so Emily is like, oh, okay, shit. So they found my DNA on Samaroff, and now Conrad Harlow is dead the same night that I go to see him. And that she's taken into custody and released. And she was like, wait a minute, are you here to bring me in? And he was basically like, no, at this point they don't have enough to bring you in. Basically he's doing what he can to look into it. And she was basically like, it's the crooked agent. I know it's the crooked agent that's behind all this. And so Nick actually pulls out burner phones. He gave her one and basically was like, this is how we're going to have to communicate now, because we don't want to leave any kind of phone records or anything like that for anybody to trace. So he grabbed his coat to leave because he's like, he basically wants to go and work on the case, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And so she was like, wait a minute, we're supposed to take Flynn go-karting. And he was like, well, you could take her. Well, you could take him. That's fine. She was like, well, we were supposed to do this together. You want me to do it alone? He was like, yeah, that's going to be fine. So you could tell she looked kind of nervous and worried, but it was what it was. So she goes to pick up Flynn from his swim practice, and he was kind of looking at her like, she was like, well, I came to pick you up. Did your dad call you? And I couldn't really make out what he said to her. But he was like, well, where are we going? And she was like, it's a surprise. And so they get to the go-kart track, and of course, he's all smiles. He's grinning from ear to ear, like, okay, like this is the coolest thing ever. So she's helping him put his helmet and, the hoodie and the helmet and all stuff on, and helping him get all strapped in. And so she's kind of watching him go around, and he goes around and comes back. He was like, oh, he wants to do it again, right? But he actually asked her if she wants to go, asked her to go with him. So, of course, she jumped at that because, it's a small thing, but he thought enough to include her in the fun, right? So they whip around the track all slow and, slow and steady, right? But then they go around. He's like, okay, let's go around again. She's like, okay, one more time. So they whip around. So this is the real deal. Now they're actually racing. So you can hear them gunning the thing. It's just, they're whipping around that track. And of course, her being older and better driver, she beat him. And so it's like he was catching up to her. She had stopped. She had got back to the finish line and stopped, and she was waiting for him to pull up. And so he's like, he was almost there. And for some strange reason, something happened to that go-kart where it flipped over. It flipped over, and you can see where he hit his head, and he was kind of laying, the go-kart was kind of on his side, and he was kind of like laying over. And of course, she panicked, she runs over, she's screaming for them to get the, call an ambulance, Okay. So, Nick is at the office, and he's working on, he's looking at, I think, because he was tasked with going through some of her old cases, and he's looking at a list of it was unclear, it didn't really make much sense, but he was looking through a list, what appeared to be FBI agents who had some connection to her and some cases that she worked on. And he came across an inconsistency with one agent, Agent Crown. He clocked in, but left early. And so he saw that he tapped Ericsson, and he asked Ericsson, like, how did Agent Crown file paperwork at 10 when he left at 8 o'clock? And so she was like, oh, well, I just did him a solid and I helped him out and I did the paperwork for him. So, okay. Already Nick is effing up, right? Because it's like, if you really believe that it's somebody on your team or somebody in law enforcement that did this, would you be so heavy-handed and would you be so direct in trying to get information? So, I thought that was weird. But she didn't think anything of it. She answered the question and went on back to her, whatever she was working on. He gets up and walks over. So Crown walks in and sits at his desk. Nick gets up and goes over to Crown's desk and starts questioning him about where he went and all that. Now, Nick ain't in no damn type of supervisory position to be sitting up asking somebody what the hell they're doing. Or, what they're doing with their time, right? So, of course, Crown is looking at him like, who the freak are you to be sitting up asking me what I was doing? What the hell difference does it make? How's it your business? And so Nick was like, basically, like, Crown was basically like, well, why do you want to know what's going on? And so eventually Crown looked at him, what does this look like? I know you're not trying to accuse me of something, but he basically said, if you must know, I left early to meet a woman. And if you saw her, then you would have left early too, right? And so, do you have any other questions you want to ask me? And he was like, no, basically. So, they get to the hospital with Flynn. They take him back. So Emily is standing there waiting, and she sees his blood. So he obviously busted his head, split his head or something, because she had blood on her hands, and she started to have some type of panic attack or something. So she's like, you can see she's starting to struggling to breathe. She goes into the bathroom, and she gets sick in the bathroom. And while her head, I think it was maybe the position, like certain things trigger her. And so I think it's because the way her head was hanging over the toilet because she was throwing up. You start seeing water coming down. Like initially it was just dripping down around her. Like you're like, where the hell is this water coming from? And she kind of falls back, and then there's water all over the floor. And then you realize that she's remembering being in the tank as the water came rushing in to the tank. And so usually something happens to snap her out of it. And I think it was her cell phone that rang. It was Alice. And so I'm assuming they didn't show her having a conversation, but she picks her phone up. And next you know, it flashes to Nick. Allison is calling Nick to let him know that Flynn is in the hospital. So of course they both get to the hospital. At this point, the doctor comes out to talk to Emily, and you see Alice running up, and she's like, "Okay, what is going on? Is he okay? What's going on? Is he okay?" And so the doctor was like, "Well, who are you?" And Alice like, "Well, I'm his mother." And so the doctor looks at Emily and said, "Wait a minute, I thought you said you were his mother." And so Emily, she didn't say anything. She was like, "Oh, okay." But Alice said, well, she is his mother. So the doctor was basically like, he has a concussion. We're running tests. We don't think that we don't think he's going to have any permanent damage, but, he needs to rest. And so Emily and Alice go into the room and sit with him. Nick finally arrives, and then Emily leaves the room and just leaves Alice and Nick in there to, kind of console and talk to Flynn to find out how he's doing, whatever the case may be. And so Nick looks over at Alice and said, I thank you for being patient with her. And Alice looked at him and was like, I don't blame her. I blame you. And he pulls her out into the hall. And he was like, well, wait a minute. That could have happened even if I was there. Which is true. But the reason she's pissed off is because he didn't ask her if it was okay for Emily to take Flynn anywhere. She didn't even know about it. She had no knowledge that Flynn was with Emily. And so she feels like, I can understand how she can feel like she's been disrespected and she's been cut out. Like, she's raised the boy. She has earned the right to be, in the know of what's going on with him. Yes, Emily is his biological mother, but she hasn't been there. Now we can look at it as, she wasn't there through no fault of her own, but the fact is, the facts are the facts. Emily, as far as Flynn is concerned, Alice is his mother. And so she felt like, Nick was dead wrong for doing what he did. And he was. And for all intents and purposes, he did apologize. Now, it wasn't like he didn't sit up and make excuses, which I can say. He did not sit up and make excuses. And whether she's his mother and just said, no. He apologized to her. And basically was like, I need to go. And she was like, wait a minute, you need to go right now? And so he's like, Harlow Conrad is dead, was murdered. And they think Emily did it, and I need to be out here working to figure out what's going on so I can help her. And she's like, well, wait a minute. They think that she's a murderer, and you let her take Flynn? And he's like, well, no, I know that's not her. She would never do anything like that. And so, he's, trying to talk to Alice, and eventually he was like, you know how much I love you. And she just walked away. At this point, Alice is just sick of his ass, and him and Emily, right? So she walks back into the room with Flynn. So Emily's obviously, she's still at the hospital, but she's down the hall in the waiting area. And he walks over to her. And he said that, I think that Crown may be involved. I don't know for sure, but I need to do some investigating. And so Emily was like, well, I think we need to go back to Harlow Conrad's place to see what we can find out and see if there's any connection to anybody. And he basically told her, that's out of our jurisdiction. We can't go there. And one of the things that you can see about Emily is that she's very manipulative. She knows that Nick has feelings for her. And that he's not going to let her just run off and just get herself into a situation where she's being injured, she's being hurt, or God forbid thrown in jail, or something happens to her again, right? So she was basically like, you know what, you've always been a stickler for the rules, and I don't want you to change that, but basically I'm going to go and see what's going on. She knew that he wasn't going to let her go by herself. Emily, that shit, I'm looking at her like, girl, I'm just not feeling you at all with that. But he grabs his coat and he goes behind her. And of course, Alice is down the hall and she's kind of peeking around the corner. And she can't hear what's being said, but she can see the exchange. And they walk off and she kind of walks back into the room. Like, you could just tell, like, any minute now, Allison is about to say, F this and you and her and this whole thing. I'm not going to do this with you. So, they make it to Harlow's place, which I believe hasn't technically been released yet. I think it's still an active crime scene. And so they had police officers kind of patrolling and walking the property. And so they had to, go on over and under and, on sideways and however else to avoid these officers to get into this apartment, to this house, right? And so they got some photographs of the blood splatter and footprints and this, that, and the third. They got what they could get. And then for whatever reason, the officer came and walked through the house. Of course, they had to hide, and eventually they had to, they were able to get out. And Nick was like, just send me the photos and I'll run them and see what I can find out. Okay, so this time Jack is just now getting home. So you haven't seen Jack for a minute. And so he gets home and there's a throng of reporters outside his apartment building. Of course, they're throwing the cameras and the mic in his face. And what do you think? And, what's going on? And, do you have any comments? And he's like, no comment, no comment. He gets into his apartment. Of course, he's pissed. You can see that Jack is basically at his breaking point with this whole thing. He's a recovering alcoholic. He's been clean for like 2.5 years. And you can see that his sobriety is hanging on by a thread. You can see just the stress in his face, right? So he's kind of walking around the apartment for a minute. And he's sitting there and, he's rubbing his head. And you can see like any minute now he's going to break. So he stands up and he goes over to the fire escape. He opens the window. And he has a bottle of alcohol. He had a bottle of alcohol out there. He grabs the bottle, unwraps it, and he pulls the cap off. And you basically see him standing there with the cap... standing there, and the scene, it kind of ends there because it show you at that point it's kind of left up in the air. Did he succumb to the temptations, or was he able to fight? So at this point we don't know. Emily finally gets back and she sees a broken picture frame on the floor, There was a smashed up picture frame on the floor, and she walks in. She's looking around, and she sees the bottle of the open bottle of alcohol in the glass on the table. And so eventually Jack walks in, and she says, "You're drunk." Like, she looked at him and she was like, he was drunk. And he basically just let her know how he was feeling. Like, he's tired of cleaning up her messes. That ever since she was adopted, it's been the Emily show. And that just as his life was getting back on track, she shows up and basically fucks his life all up. And it's her fault. And she just doesn't, she doesn't care. She just does whatever she wants to do. And it doesn't really care how it impacts other people. And so he was like, she was like, basically like, "You're drunk and you get like this when you're drunk and I just don't want to bother." And he's like, "Oh yeah, really?" And so he pulls out a flask to take a drink and she slaps it out of his hand and basically was like, "F you." So Nick is back at the office and he's got the photos and he's, running whatever kind of imaging software they have to scan. He's running the images through the software and he's waiting for a response. And so Crown walks up to him and says, "Well, Jonathan," I forget Jonathan's name, it's the florist who had the connection with Kelly Price, aka Regina Talbot, that they thought may have been working with Harlow, the one who was the person that kidnapped Emily. He was like, "Well, he's not the guy," because at the time she disappeared, he was in a Mexican jail. So that's another suspect wiped off the board, which doesn't look good for Emily, right? And so he asked him again, like, "So is there anything else I can help you with? Any other questions?" And Nick was like, "No, I'm cool." So the next thing you know, you hear a ping, and it looks like the software found a match or something in the system. Now, it doesn't show you, from what I can tell, it didn't show you who it was matched to. But while it was running, you can see Nick kind of scanning the room, looking at all the shoes and trying to match and see what was going on. And then he locks in on Adam, his boss. And he says, he ends up calling Emily and was like, "Where are you right now? Text me where you are." And she was like, "What's going on?" She had just checked into a hotel. So obviously, but after that little exchange between her and Jack, she's not staying there anymore. So he was like, "Just text me where you are." And so she eventually sends him the information. He leaves to go meet up with her. And so he arrives at the hotel and he tells her about his suspicions of Adam. I think Adam was involved. And so next, his phone rang and it's Tommy. And Tommy was basically like, "You need to bring her in. You need to bring her in now. We have new evidence." And Nick is like, "What's going on?" So we have video footage of her in the area around the time that Harlow was killed. It's suspected to have been killed. And so of course, Nick is kind of taken aback, like, "What?" He said, you need to bring her in or we're going to have to come get her. And so, of course, Nick was like, "You know what? I am so sick of this mess." He gets off the phone with her and was like, "I'm sick. You've been using me. You've manipulated me. You know how I feel about you." And he basically let her have it. And she's sitting there like, "What? What's going on? What?" He said, "Where did you go after I dropped you off? Did you go? What's going on? What did you do? What's going on?" And she was like, "Wait a minute. It's not what you think. It's not what you think." He said, "Well, what's going on? Well, what is it?" And then this is long ass dramatic pause. It's like, bitch, just tell him what's going on, right? So you're sitting there like, "Girl, just say something." And so she eventually says that she was, and then you find out she was embarrassed to say it, but she went to his house, went to Nick's house. So that scene where Alice felt like somebody was outside on the property, and when she came home, and when Nick came home, and she said, "I think somebody was outside," and he kind of brushed it off like, "Oh no, that was probably the neighbor's dog." There was somebody outside. It was her. She was like, "I just wanted to see your life and see the life that I should have had or could have had, right? And, I saw the three of you together and you guys look beautiful together. And usually, you see when people disappear, it kind of wrecks families and their lives are never the same. But, seeing you guys together, you guys seem so happy and you seem like you guys have it all together and you guys were able to build a life without me." And it was basically painful for her to watch. And so they kind of embraced, and you kind of got the feeling like, "Oh, hell no, they're not." You kind of suspected eventually it's going to happen, but you're kind of looking like, "No, come on now. This is not the time for you to be trying to get in between her thighs and this whole mess. We don't need to do that. We don't need to see that." So, he basically said, "I need to go and I'm going to go and talk to Adam." So again, These are some of the most unstrategic damn people. I'm like, how could you be FBI agents and be this damn stupid? Like, I don't understand. But so Tommy gets back and he asked to talk to Adam. Adam was like, fine. He was like, that they called me and they want you to bring Emily in. So he knows that they suspect Emily and that Boston PD wants to talk to Emily. He was like, yeah, I told him that I would have her there within the hour. And so they go into the conference room and they sit down. And he proceeds to question Adam. Now, and keep in mind, Adam is his boss, right? So he asks Adam about Emily, and he said, is this about Adam says, is this about Emily's theory about the crooked agent? And he was like, well, yeah. And he said, yeah, she mentioned that when she was undercover, I guess, investigating Samaroff. And at the time, I thought there may have been a dirty cop in here as well. But, we never found anything to basically to substantiate that. And then Nick asked him if he was ever at Harlow's house. And, of course, Adam is kind of feeling some kind of way. Like, who are you to question me? And I'm like, okay, I was expecting Adam to lie. Like, no, I know what you're talking about. But he said, yeah, I was there yesterday or something. But he basically admitted to being there. So it would make sense that his footprint was there, right? And so Adam kind of leaned in. He has like this really husky voice. He's like, okay, so what do you think, Nick? Do you think that I'm trying to frame Emily? Or does the evidence speak for itself? And Adam was like, I understand that you're under a lot of stress. So I'm just going to forgive. So we're just going to forget like this. We're going to act like this misguided conversation that you just trying to have with me. This never effing happened, right? He didn't say effing, but basically that's basically what he was saying. We're going to act like this didn't even happen. And don't you have some place that you need to be? And so basically he was telling him, okay, that you still have to get Emily down to Boston PD so they can question her. And so Adam Nick kind of sat back and was like, well, yeah, He was like, yeah, you're right. It must be the stress. And so Adam says, you know what, this is your lucky, what did he say? You're lucky I'm understanding. If you have a second chance, not many people get second chances, but the way that he said it was kind of creepy, right? So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe Adam did, maybe it's in Adam to knock somebody off. I don't know. But the way he said that was kind of creepy. And so you flash to Emily. And so Emily done broke into damn Adam's house, right? Again, you got G.I. Jane over here on her solo mission. And again, not thinking about the consequences, right? So she done broke into this man's house. And she's obviously looking through. She goes into his study and she finds this book. And she opens it. And it has these weird drawings in it of eyes and blood coming from eyes and a bunch of writing. It looked weird, right? And then here she go again, having one of her episodes, right? So next thing you know, you see blood dropping on the page. And you're like, what the hell is that? So I'm thinking the way the blood was dropping, I'm thinking, oh my God, she's going to look up. And it's going to be a dead body. It's going to be something, right? So she looks up, and it's actually the blood is coming from her eyes. She starts having, like she's sick all of a sudden. She drops to the floor. She starts throwing up blood. I mean, it's this whole thing now, right? All this is going on. Adam gets home. He pulls into the driveway, right? So she's still having the symptoms, and you thinking, oh my God. So you can see the suspense building. Like, oh my God, her ass is about to get caught. Adam looked like he would whoop a bitch's ass. Adam looked like he would put in some work, right? So I just was like, it's about to be all bad for Emily. Like, it's about to be a hot ass mess because she's never going to be able to explain why she's in this house. And it's going to be all bad. So it's usually something that happens that snaps her out of these episodes. So Adam gets out of the car and he slams his car door. And that's what snapped her out of it. And she looked around and she realized there was no blood nowhere. There wasn't nothing going on with her. That she was perfectly fine. And so she rushed and got up and got the book, put the book back on the shelf. And she had to go run and hide. And so Adam gets in, of course, go through his routine, the keys and all that. He sits on the couch. He whips out his tablet to look up something. But the look on his face, like he's really looking for something specific. I don't know. It was something about the look on his face, right? And so he looks over and he sees that his side door is open. Not open, unlocked. And so, of course, he's looking like, him being an officer, he's not going to leave his house and leave his door, leave his house unsecure, right? And so he gets up and he turns the lock to lock it. And you think, oh shit, that was her way out, right? So it's like, what's she gonna do now? So he's now looking around like, okay, wait a minute. There could still be somebody here, or somebody's been here. So he's kind of looking around, and then he goes into his study, and so she was able to slip out, go and unlock the door and slip out. So now, he's going to come back and see that the door has been unlocked. And you just see him coming out and see the door is unlocked again. So he's going to know that somebody's been in his place, right? While he was there. So, and that's basically how the episode ends. It was just a hot mess. Emily, girl, she is getting on my nerves, for real. But it's still a good show. I'm still kind of getting into it, and I wish things would kind of unfold a little quicker. Like, it seems like these episodes are being dragged out. But it's still good. I'm still going to continue to watch and see what's going on. I have to at this point. I need to see what's going on. I got to know now at this point what happened. So I'm going to leave this here, and I will talk to you guys later.